Well, that was the most major flooding we've had in over 100 years. So there's nobody on the island that's ever experienced anything like it. I was quite surprised by the amount of water that came onto the island. Um, I didn't really expect it to get that high. You know, at the start of the flooding, we were able to help people out with pumping out some of their sub basements. Um, as the problem got much larger, the city stepped in. They had, I believe, about 27 manned pumps to pump the water out. We had, I think, about a quarter million sandbags put up around the perimeter of the island and important buildings, pumping stations, for instance. I'll tell you, when we had the flooding, the water came up out of the lagoon there and came to about this line right here. That's how far the water came right up. And we had to record the depth of the water throughout the roadway twice a day for the emergency services office. And there was one point there we measured the water 27 inches on the roadway. Wow. Which is
Yeah.
substantial. You know, the unique thing over here is we don't have sewers where the water can run into a filtration plant or sewage plant. We have pumping stations, and if the pumping stations get flooded out, then the sewage here doesn't get pumped, and that would have actually probably had the pumping stations got flooded out, we'd have probably all had to leave the island because there would have been sewage all over. But we had all the pumping stations sandbagged, and they were being pumped out regularly. So basically, that was the main reason we were able to. The residents, anyways, they brought outhouses here, thinking if we did get flooded out, they still wanted the fire department here. Um, so we didn't have to use the outhouses, luckily. And then the water just seemed to recede just at about a time where it got over that magical mark, and would have been time to exit for most of the community people. We just got to that point, and the city stayed on top of it with these 27 pumps. Some of them were as big as small cars, so we were pumping out millions of liters every day off the island. And one unique thing that happened about 3 or 4 weeks into this flooding is all the carp came out of the lake and came onto the island. So we had tens of thousands of carp all in the grass here in water that was only a foot deep or so. But I don't know if they were spawning or they came in quickly, and they stayed about a week or 10 days, and they disappeared just about as quick as they came. It was kind of Mother Nature doing its thing, but it was a unique experience here. But you can see how high the water must have been to come like right across right out of there and then come up. We're on a bit of a slight uphill here. The island's pretty flat by and large, but we are just slightly higher than the roadway here. One unfortunate thing was that we had many beautiful evergreen trees, very mature, big, beautiful trees that I guess their root system couldn't take that water, and they've all been cut down now. And so we've lost many of our trees that were right along the waterfront, which is unfortunate. Part of the beauty over here is all the trees. We have some old willow trees that take a beating every time we have windstorms. And this year, I think we've had 3 substantial windstorms. That's caused a lot of damage here too. So the community came together, and actually nobody really had to leave the island. People still could remain in their homes. It didn't get to where it flooded out homes. Some of the sub-basements and backyards, of course, were flooded. We had a couple of community centers that actually did send their people home, and the school did stop teaching here. The school closed down. Basically, the water didn't reach the school, but the school bus had many problems navigating the roads because of the water being so deep. So it was deemed, the transportation part of it was deemed not to be safe, and so the school did close down. as well as we have an art school here too, and that program closed for the duration of the floods. But basically, besides tourists not being able to come here for several months, uh, things continued on the best we could. People wore boots and helped each other, helped the older people, bringing them food, and with a lot of city help, we were able to kind of keep the flooding under control by sandbagging the island and pumping the water off the island as best we could. So it was an interesting time for sure.
Mhm.